What is up, guys? It is your LOL support here. Be sure to give this video a huge thumbs up. Like us on Facebook and Twitter to ask us questions and to receive news on the channel. Links for both will be in the description below. And last, be sure to tick that subscribe button to join our team, but more importantly, to join our family. Alright guys, see ya.
But now that you're gone, I can fly.
What is up, guys? It is your LOL support here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 4.11 patch to see what they just did with League of Legends. Now, this patch focuses a lot on the early game of the gameplay on Summoner's Rift. The First Blood now increased to 325, meaning if you pick up First Blood, you might be able to just go back and buy some boots. Also, any kill before 4 minutes, rather than giving you 60% of the normal kill value, will give you 75%. So they put a little bit more emphasis on getting the kills early on and rewarding you for it more heavily. Kill streak bonuses are actually reduced now, so if you are on a killing spree, it's going to be more time before you're worth the maximum amount of gold. Per kill, it is dropped to 16.5% compared to 20%. And you cap out at a value of 500 after 5 kills now instead of 4 kills. Turrets have also seen a bit of a buff, with the damage per hit being increased by roughly 12.5%. And also, they take less time to warm up, meaning that tower diving is going to be a little bit harder for the junglers and the top laners out there. And the turrets will now warm up after 2 hits compared to 3 hits. And the turrets will also select targets just a bit faster, so it's going to be a little bit harder to last hit under tower and to harass the person under tower. It's going to be a little bit harder to do that. Also, the range of experience given by minions' death is increased, meaning all the ADCs out there who don't leash for their jungler to make sure they get that CS and also that experience, it might be worth it now to help out your jungle, because you will get the experience, maybe not the gold, but you'll definitely set your jungler off to a better start. So, after we've gone over the early game and the turrets and the experience, let's go into some of the lanes that took some hits. Well, let's look at the top lane first. Some of the players that have been nerfed and or buffed throughout this patch in the top lane include Jax, include potentially Maokai if you'd like to play him there now, because he is seeing a lot of rework that makes him potentially viable for top lane in my opinion. Nidalee if you choose to play her top because of her new kit rework. Rengar also saw some changes, and Vladimir as well. And Yasuo and Zac, depending on if you like to play them top, also got reworks, but I'll work them into a different rotation later on. So first, let's take a look at Jax. Jax was a little bit too powerful throughout all stages of his game. Jax was meant to be sort of that hyper carry that has a very weak early game, but his early game was so insignificant as far as weaknesses were concerned that he was just a brick wall becoming a stronger brick wall later on. So Jax saw a nerf to overall his base health dropped, his health per level dropped, and his armor per level dropped as well. So overall, a total nerf to Jax and his early game, potentially making him a little bit harder to play in the early, but still just as rewarding in the late game. Now, Rengar did not receive too much of a nerf or a buff compared to just kind of like a bug fix. His Bola strike now correctly will slow on top of the root, should he choose to Bola and then Bola again. Another top laner that saw some love is Vladimir, and this was a long-awaited thing by me personally. I love playing Vladimir, and now when you're in your pool, you can use summoners, you can use Zhonya's or activated items, meaning that when you are in pool form, you can activate your Zhonya's Hourglass and become a puddle of pee if you want. And also you can cast Heal, Flash, or Ghost. So that puddle of blood that's going really, really slow that we know and we love now can move just a little bit faster now. Now let's move on to the mid lane, which arguably took the most amount of reworking and changes throughout this patch. Champions that took hits in the mid lane are limited to Heimerdinger, Karthus, Kayle, Nidalee if you choose to play her there after the rework, Yasuo, and Ziggs. All of these champions took some sort of a change in the 4.11 patch. Now let's go over it from the start. Heimerdinger now is a little bit easier to lane against, because everyone knows when you gank a Heimerdinger, it gets really, really challenging because all the turrets are just firing and you don't know who they're firing at. So Riot did a very good job right now, and they implemented a system kind of like how a normal turret works, where you can see when the turret aggroes you and when it's actually firing at you. So you'll see when you're targeted by Heimerdinger's turrets now. So there's really no guessing in, oh, am I getting hit by Heimerdinger's turrets or not? Another person that got a little bit of a bug fix was Karthus. Karthus' Requiem, often showed on the left-hand side by the green dot indicating that his ult was up. That would often show when his ult wasn't even up. So they fixed that bug, so that's going to be a little bit easier for his teammates to coordinate tower dives that leave the enemies low health and allow the Karthus to ult. Kayle also received a major nerf to her overall kit, becoming just still pretty powerful, but she was a little bit too powerful beforehand. All around, her general attack speed per level got nerfed. Her scaling with her Righteous Fury, which is her E ability, which increases your attack range, that is dropped to 0.2% of ability power, and her ultimate is receiving a cooldown increase, meaning that it's going to be up less throughout the games. The next the next mid laner we're going to be going into is Nidalee. Nidalee received a lot of work, and potentially this is going to be looked at as a buff for Nidalee. Her base health has been increased, and her base armor has been increased. And her passive on Prowl got a little bit of a change. Now she receives a 10% movement speed in all directions while hunting, compared to just in one direction. But she will receive 30% move speed when hunting targets. So when she moves towards the hunted target, she gets 30%. But if someone's hunted, overall she's going to get a 10% movement speed increase. Her javelin toss was a little bit too hard to hit for a lot of people, so they ended up increasing the radius of the javelin toss itself. Her bushwhack also saw some changes. The cooldowns were actually dropped in the early levels, but maintained the same roughly throughout the maximum level of bushwhack. And now bushwhack does a little bit less percentage of the target's current health, but it's going to be less effective from far range, because now enemies that trigger the trap that are not within 3,000 units of Nidalee will not be revealed and will not be marked as hunted. Meaning I can't be a mid lane, put a trap by the enemy red buff, and I base, they step on it, they're not going to be revealed to me. They're just going to be taking the damage. So now we're going to look at her Pounce, which is the bushwhack of her cougar form. And the Pounce range overall when hunting is increased. So you're going to be able to leap just a little bit further when an enemy is hunted. And also, pouncing on a hunted target now puts Nidalee, rather than 50 units to the opposite side of it, or rather than 150 units to the opposite side of the target, it will now be placed 75 units in the target's facing direction. And her Primal Surge also received a drop in the mana cost, so that she's going to be able to heal a lot more in lane, meaning that Nidalee's sustain in lane is going to be a little bit more significant than it is right now. And her ultimate will be reset if she triggers the hunt in human form but recently switched out of cougar form. That cooldown will be refreshed. So if I was in cougar form, switched over to human form, landed a spear, instantly I can switch back to cougar form. And this will be making room for a lot more plays between switching from cougar to human form. The next mid lane we're going to be looking at is Yasuo. Now Yasuo has been very mobile as a mid laner. However, he's been doing a little bit too much damage at his mobility with the stacking on his E, his sweeping blade. So rather than maxing out at 100% damage at 4 stacks, they dropped it to only 50% cap at 2 stacks, meaning he's going to be able to only do 50%, and he can't stack past 2 stacks. The last mid laner we're going to be looking at is Ziggs. Ziggs overall in this patch received a nerf. His general move speed was decreased just by 5, but it's a small movement speed decrease, and also the explosive trigger radius on his bouncing bomb was also decreased as well. And what this is going to be saying is it's going to be a lot harder for this Zig to land Qs, and it's going to be harder for him to do as much damage when people are like, wow, that bomb didn't hit me. Because I know we've all definitely been there. Now let's take a look at the bot lane. Overall, no ADCs got nerfed in this patch. However, they do include a snippet about Lucian, saying that they're going to be keeping a very, very, very close eye on him. meaning that he did not receive a nerf on this patch, but most likely 9 times out of 10 he's probably going to receive a nerf in the next patch. So for all you guys who like playing ADC, enjoy playing the Lucian while he's still pretty overpowered, because he might be taking a significant nerf in the next patch. So have fun out there. The other bot laner we're going to be taking a look at is the support. And the support we're going to be looking at is Braum. Braum overall had a really good passive with concussive blows. However, the amount of time that people had to trigger concussive blows was just a little bit too long, and it was allowing for people to make stuns happen well after the concussive blows was applied. So now the time to proc concussive blows is now 4-second window compared to a 5-second window. This, however, does not mean Braum can trigger concussive blows a lot more often. It just means that the time span in which you have to activate the stun is lessened. However, the amount of time that you have to take between stunning targets is still the same. So for all of you out there, don't worry, it's not going to be stunning you more often. It's just going to be dropping the window of which you can get stunned. The damage also took a hit as far as the early level damage, just by a little bit, but it scales a little bit better into late game. So overall it's going to be doing more damage in the late game, but a little bit less in the early game. But be honest, we all use the Q for his passive compared to the damage, but a damage nerf is still a damage nerf. And also there was a bug fix on his stand behind me where if somebody was on the other side of a wall and Braum tried to jump to them, he'd get a backful of environment, backful of terrain, because he wouldn't necessarily clear the wall sometimes. So that bug is now fixed and you should not be worried about that anymore. Now let's take a look at the jungle, because the jungle got a really big work on Maokai, and I think that this is going to maybe be able to potentially bring him into the top lane. So Maokai, his Q, Arcane Smash, it received a nerf on the seconds, the duration of the slow. However, the mana cost was dropped by 10. So that means that he's become more efficient at using this, but the slow is going to be a little bit less significant. His Twisted Advance, which was his stun, now no longer has a cast time. So it's going to be able to be activated right away. And compared to doing flat damage and becoming sort of outclassed later in the game, they changed it to percent health damage, percent maximum health, so that it might be doing a little bit less damage in the early game. However, this ability now scales into late game, making this ability just a little bit more potent and making it so that it just doesn't drop off at the end of the game. The mana cost was also dropped to 75 at all ranks, so this also makes it more efficient the more you rank it up. And the cooldown is now dropped as well. Later ranks, it will be a less cooldown compared to the old 13 cooldown flat, the flat cooldown that it had earlier. And also the range was decreased to compensate for all these buffs to Twisted Advance. So what I see in this is I see a percent damage to maximum health, a range drop, meaning it's going to be a little bit harder to use this when ganking, and overall a mana and a cooldown drop. So this makes it a little bit more suited for top lane, in my personal opinion. His Sapling Toss now scales with his move speed, so it's a buy one get one free at the shop. When you buy boots, you get a Sapling's pair of boots for free. So they now scale with his move speed, but also took a hit to the base move speed that they have, dropping to 450 compared to the old 475. So they're not as fast early on, but if you get move speed with Maokai, you're definitely going to be seeing faster saplings. Now, when the saplings explode and they hit somebody, it's going to drop their move speed by 50%. So this is going to be active as a slow as well. So used in conjunction with your Arcane Smash, you're going to be getting a good amount of slow and stun off with a Maokai. And the overall ability power scaling was not changed. However, the base damages of these saplings were decreased. But the mana costs were also decreased as well. So he's becoming more efficient with the sapling toss and is going to be able to spam it a lot more often. Now, the mana costs only take a drop by 10 mana, but if you spam 10 saplings, that's 100 mana. So that's going to make a difference in the top lane if you choose to bring him there, which I'm not saying you have to, but I might try it out. His last change was to his ult. Now, instead of having to pick a location where you guys might fight and have the enemy team just run away from the location and fight in a different spot, your ult now follows you, and it's an AoE around yourself. Now, because this is such a useful thing now, they had to drop the radius of it. However, they also dropped the mana cost, which again is what we've been following as a thematic change to Maokai. the radius was dropped by a whole 75 units. So this is going to be a little bit significant, but it's now going to be a little bit more accurate when it comes to following you. And another thing that took a change was now you can see how much damage you've mitigated with the new passive little indicator that only you can see, called Good Job Maokai. So now you can see how much you saved your team, and you can brag about it in all chat. So the next jungler we're going to be taking a look at is Nautilus. Nautilus's change was only to his passive, to staggering blows. Now he can trigger it more often at higher ranks. So compared to the flat amount of time that you could trigger it, now it's the cooldown was dropped, so you can trigger it more often. So there's more stuns to be had with the Nautilus. So this might be seeing its way into the jungle and maybe seeing more Nautilus. I don't know, but he will be seeing a small buff. Skarner overall is receiving a nerf. With the most recent patch, Skarner was just too monstrous if he got the ball rolling, and it was very easy to get the ball rolling on him. So his Crystal Slash took a physical damage drop at all levels, took a bonus magic damage drop at all levels, and also saw a movement speed % slow at all levels. And there is also a bug fix on his Impale, which Skarner could occasionally throw out a basic attack while impaling a target, which that's kind of sucks. I mean, I can't even move, and then you're gonna auto attack me in between. So they fixed a little bug on that. And last, we're going to be looking at Zac. Zac is a jungler that was very good, but all of a sudden just fell off the map. And I think Riot wants to bring him back onto the radar with these changes. So these changes are only going to be to his clearing speed and his sustain in the jungle. But his W, now picking up a blob that you create by using Unstable Matter, will now drop the cooldown of Unstable Matter by 1 second. And also, you receive a kind of like a Phantom Dancer passive whenever you hit a jungle monster with Unstable Matter. You ignore the unit collision of the monster so that you can pick up blobs just a little bit easier. You don't have to worry about pathing around the jungle monster and then potentially missing your blob or taking a lot more damage just for trying to pick up a blob. And the cooldown was also increased a little bit to 5 seconds on the amount of time that you can pick up a blob. So it is becoming a little bit easier to pick up the blobs with Zac, therefore increasing his sustain in the jungle. As far as skill shots are concerned, a couple champions received a buff to the hitbox on their skill shots, but they will not be seeing a visual rework on the skill shots themselves. These champions are Shyvana, Thresh, and Vi. A couple champions receiving new splash arts are Caitlyn and Urgot, and a couple items that received some changes were the jungle items. Hunter's Machete's overall cost is increased. It now has more damage. It now has damage reduction against monsters in the jungle, and it also gives you 10 AD against monsters in the jungle. But the passive Maim and the passive Butcher were removed from the item. We are now introducing the new item, the Quill Coat. And the recipe for this will be the Hunter's Machete, a cloth armor, and 75 gold. Now, this is going to be giving you armor, and it's also going to be giving you a massive health and mana regen while you're being attacked by a monster. And attacking monsters will lose 5% of their maximum health over 3 seconds, up to 150. So if blue buff is attacking you, it's going to lose 5% of its maximum health over 3 seconds. And also, you're going to be gaining 40% health regeneration per 5 seconds and 30 mana regeneration per 5 seconds while being attacked. And also, this is going to have the active of a Wriggles Lantern, where you have a stealth ward that you can use if buying Quill's Coat. The Spirit of the Ancient Golem, because it is now a product of the Quill Coat in the recipe, it will be seeing a armor or cooldown reduction will stay the same. It now gets armor when you buy it. You get 20 armor, which is going to be helpful for the tanky junglers. You get a new bonus health. You get 25% bonus health, which is going to be massive on those high health junglers such as Mundo. And the sapling barbs, as discussed on Quill Coat, will still be the same, and you still get the vision ward or the stealth ward. But you do not have tenacity on this item anymore, so now you will have to buy Merc Shreds with the Spirit of the Ancient Golem if you want that extra tenacity, and the Butcher passive will be removed as well. The Spirit Stone now has a different combined cost, but it's still, the total cost is the same. Madred's Razor saw a 25 gold increase, and Wriggle's Lantern, the cost remained the same, but the combined cost was dropped. And now moving on to the Essence Reaver. The Essence Reaver was something that they introduced in the last patch to maybe compensate for some of the mana-hungry champions. However, it just simply wasn't stacking up as well as other items, and it wasn't as efficient as some of the other items. So they did an overall, just an attack damage increase from 50 to 60, just to see how it would affect the users. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Now, for the changes in the ranked queues, you can no longer queue with somebody in Diamond if you are a whole 2 tiers below them. So now you have a window of 1 tier below and 1 tier above. So if you're in Bronze, you can only queue with people in Silver. If you're from Silver 5 to Silver 1, you can only queue from Bronze 5 to Gold 1. So this is going to be making a little bit more even as far as the people that you are playing against in the ranked matches. And public chat rooms were disabled just because they weren't serving the purpose. A lot of the chat rooms were just receiving phishing and spam and scams and stuff like that, so they removed the overall chat rooms. And some upcoming skins that I am personally very excited about are going to be Hazmat Heimerdinger and Soul Stealer Vladimir. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed these patch notes. If you liked it, please leave a like. If you have any suggestions for how we can change this, maybe even make it a little bit better, post a comment down below. And remember, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to become part of the family, because we love all of you guys out there, and we love when you guys post comments. Hope you guys enjoyed these patch notes, and get out there, you summoners. Alright, without anything else to say, this has been your LOL Support, and I am out of here.